Good morning, Coach Landry. How are you?
Good morning. How you guys doing?
We are doing well. Oh, Caleb left. Caleb's back. Let's move you in the middle here, Coach Landry. So we want to start off with our, deepest. I know that you probably were very close or are very close to Mike Leach. Probably not the best situation right now. Um, so we are very, very sorry about what's happening. I don't know what the latest on Coach Leach is, but again, our condolences to you for
I
that.
want to jump in
Caleb.
actually.
Okay.
Mississippi State has just tweeted like 3 minutes ago or 8 minutes ago that Mike Leach has passed.
God
It looks
bless.
like it is confirmed. This is an awful day, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's
Finish,
awful.
Amanda.
So just that's absolutely horrible, and I'm so sorry. Um, because I mean he was my favorite coach, even being a not a Mississippi State fan, but he was absolutely great, and that is so disheartening and so terrible. So my
Y-
apologies.
Yeah, it's been a numbing couple of days. I think the shock value is pretty bad. I talked to him Thursday. Um, so it's really hard to process when things happen this quickly. And as I get a little older and you deal with loss of parents and loss of loved ones and loss of friends and there's no good way to handle this. I've dealt with with people who've been sick and you've had time to prepare, and then there's the shocking nature of this. I knew Mike was dealing with some issues during the season, pneumonia wise. Um, never, I you know, I, you can never be prepared for this. Um, so Sunday night I was obviously shocked, and initial thought was, well, this they'll get the care and take care of. But it was pretty clear yesterday that things were not going to end in the miraculous fashion that we had all hoped. Um, it's ironic because I was watching. I had a coaching buddy from LSU that came and watched the Army Navy game with me Saturday, and we were discussing something that you guys probably wouldn't remember this, but there's a good friend by the name of Bo Ryan that he was a coach at North Carolina State, and he replaced Charlie McClendon at LSU. And if name doesn't ring a bell to most of you, you never coached at LSU. And we were discussing this because this mutual friend was around and remembered this. And I don't know why, I can't remember how it came up, but Bo Ryan died in a plane crash. He was on a recruiting trip, and his plane went down the Atlantic Ocean, and they never found the plane or anything. And um, I don't know why that came up on Saturday, and then little did I know, about 12 hours later, this happened. And the thing about it is this happens every day to someone's family, and it's always difficult when it's people that and I think Mike is someone that everybody feels, and coaches feel like they know him, any public figure. So yeah, I'm not doing a really good job of collecting my words because I was anticipating this. But yeah, it's he was such a it's hard to talk about him in past tense. He was such a unique guy because he and I were like two completely different. I was football all the time, and I always thought Mike liked football, and he really did. He loved football, loved coaching, but he had so many more interests. Um, and he was so quirky. When I had my heart surgery, I had an aortic valve replacement, and it anyway, a few friends and I was call and check on him. When he called, he wanted to know what type of valve was. Is it a pig valve? Is this? And I'm like, no, it was a mechanical valve, and so oh man, he was just fascinated. So 2 days later, he calls me back and he says, and he has this, I'm telling you guys, 20-minute conversation about my Onyx mechanical valve. Do you know was developed in Germany, and it was this and that. And I got up and said, Mike, I now know more about my valve than my cardiologist and my surgeon did. So he was that type of guy. He would be like, if he were here, he'd want to know, all about you guys, Amanda and your beautiful future and blessings in your life, and what's going on, and what have you done, and what did you study, and oh, you were born in Nashville. Oh, and I did, and he would just, and Caleb, he'd want to know, like, well, what are you doing? What's your goals? He was a guy that he was an everyman's guy. We're in a world of coaches today, or followed by 3 and 4 policemen. Mike would just not want any part of that. He would walk in and just sit down and talk, and just, how's it going, guys? What are we talking about? And he would just envelop the conversation. I had a friend of mine was on a staff at Washington State, and he lived in Pullman. I don't know if you guys ever been to Pullman, Washington. It's just kind of, it reminds me a little bit of Starkville, but even Washington State is Pullman. Pullman is Washington State. It's like this little town that you don't really know, and you go up on a hill, and there's Washington State, and that's it. He walked to work every day because he lived that close. And so, and he wasn't like a really early or stay at late to the office type of guy. So they meet, I don't know, say like 8:00 in the morning. Well, there's this one morning, as a coaching staff, they're waiting, and it's 8:30. It's 9:00. No one knows where Mike is. Mike gets in, and he tells them the story. He was walking to work, and he saw this, what appeared to be a family of raccoons. And so he decided to wander off into the woods to see what they would do and where they would go and all of that. That's quintessential Mike. It's like he could be easily distracted into doing his things. Anyway, I'm rambling. I apologize for that. Yeah.
No, I love it. I love hearing these stories about him. It seems like he was exactly how he was portrayed, like exactly how he was in the media. It seems like he was exactly that way in real life too.
And not many coaches are. I always laugh sometimes. It's like, well, yeah, if you only knew, but you I can tell you out there, you knew Mike Leach. I mean, what you saw is what you got. He was interested in what you were doing. You driving a truck, you were a financial planner, you're a politician, you whatever. He went in. This is long before he became president, but he decided he wanted to learn something from Donald Trump. So he made an appointment, and he waited. This was when he was at Texas Tech, I believe. And he just going to New York, and he said, you know what? I want to go and meet Donald Trump. So he went, and he waited in the lobby and all of that. And he waited, and he got to know Donald Trump. And he, of course, got a lot of heat for a lot of his political stances, but he just didn't care what people thought. He was Mike.
Chris, I want to get a little bit of, talking a little bit about his legacy. I mean, in 1997, he and Hal Mummy together come to Kentucky with Tim Couch. And really, they had been running this air raid for about 8 years now at Iowa Wesleyan and Valdosta State, and just take the college football world by storm running it at Kentucky. And turned Tim Couch into a number 1 draft pick. One of my earliest memories growing up watching Tennessee was Peyton Manning and Tim Couch just playing in a Tennessee ended up winning in a blowout, but it was Peyton Manning's best passing game because Tim Couch kept forcing him and the Vols to keep throwing it. Can you talk a little bit about just the way they just shocked the college football world when they brought that into the mainstream?
Yeah, Mike. So Mike never played football, which is really unusual. He played rugby. And it's where he met Sharon at Brigham Young. He played rugby, intramural rugby. And he went to law school. And he went to Pepperdine. But he never took the bar. He was intoxicated by football. And he mainly was intoxicated by what they were doing at BYU. Lavelle Edwards. Back in the day when everybody around the country, it wasn't a Big Ten thing. It was everybody was running the football, and they were throwing it all across the yard at BYU. I mean, it was, that's what they did. And so he began to study that. And then you're right. Hal Mumme is the inventor of the air raid, and it was at Iowa Wesleyan. And because I actually been Iowa Wesleyan. And then they believed in it. He learned it from him. Mike was very smart, and he believed in it. He believed in, we're going to spread you horizontally, and we're going to throw it. And instead of, worrying about handoffs, and we're going to throw the short pass, and we're going to work the ball down the field. And they formulated their plan. And obviously, Hal, you mentioned Valdosta State, and they went there. So, he grew up and became, was a great player and became a GA and worked it. That's not how he did it. He did it at the grassroots where people didn't know. And it was he and Hal, and he kind of took it, and they went to Valdosta, you mentioned, at Kentucky. And it was interesting to watch them do things. And he had that first meeting with Tim Couch, and he said, we're going to throw it 50 times a game, and you're going to love it. And Tim Couch was a highly rated, 5-star guy that, everybody wanted, but he was an in-state guy. And they convinced him, no better way to go. We're going to throw it 1,000,000 times and come here. And so the rest of this is history. He goes to Oklahoma, Mike does, and it's really only one year, and does a very good job there for Bob Stoops. And when they began to kind of spread it out, and the Jason Whites and all those guys. And then from there, he got the Texas Tech job. And I think people kind of know his career from that point over at Washington State. And his ability to take, quarterbacks and take what they do. He was stubborn. He was stubborn. God bless him. He believed in it, which is great. And he just didn't vary from that at all. He just, he was going to do his, and I think it sometimes was a little bit flawed, and why sometimes you'd see him, have a lot of success and pull upsets, but then he'd lose certain games because I think people would figure out you can't play man, you can't play straight man, you can't play straight zone. And you could kind of crack that code. The other thing that was difficult, he had to have that guy, that quarterback that really was experienced. And, the interesting thing about their routes, there are very few plays in that offense, but they will practice. They'll have 6 or 8 routes, and they practice it, guys, like over and over and over. And I went to a practice one time at 2 hours in the spring, and they worked 2 routes. 2 hours over and over. Well, what they did was based upon, they didn't call the route in the huddle. The route was based upon the coverage. So it really relied upon having the symbiotic relationship of being able to see things the same from the quarterback and the receiver position. Very unique offense, as you might expect from a very, very unique individual.
Yeah, it was. And that's where you saw them. And I noticed that too. That's why I felt like at Washington State in particular, it was about 4 years before all things really took off. And I realized, it was because the quarterback and receiver have to have some chemistry and always be on the same page. And
because think about it. I mean, it's not just where to throw it, but it's like based upon that coverage. Now you got to run a slant or a post or a flag route. What if you run the wrong one? You got a mess. And there are times where it was a mess, and but it took some time to work that together.
Yeah, it's just a rough day for, I think, his family, for everybody right now. Just innocent culprit saying Mike Leach should get the cover of NCAA 23. That would definitely be a tribute to him. That would be, yeah, that would. Oh, so sorry. I don't handle stuff like this very well.
I don't think any of us do, Amanda. It's particularly when it's a shock. I don't know words, but he's got 4 kids. My understanding they were coming from. I don't know if the daughter was still living in Vancouver or not. I kind of lost track. So my understanding they all were able to get in and be there as a family, and of course Sharon is an angel, his wife, and obviously my thoughts are with them now. And it's going to be as it's really tough for the Mississippi State family and in the SEC as a whole, and in college football, because he wasn't an SEC lifer. I mean, he had the background at Texas Tech and the background at Washington State, and he was so the media loved him because he was a soundbite waiting to happen, and it's going to be as we go into, and no good time we go into the holiday season and going to the bowls and the crescendo of the college season. Um, he'll be I'm sure celebrated and talked about. And it's still really hard to believe that it's true.
So having to think about what they have to do now, I mean, you hate to go here. It's no easy transition, but Mississippi State does have a bowl game. They have to hire, they have to figure out their future on their own now. Turns out, I was just reading the news, Zach Arnett, defensive coordinator, has been named interim head coach. I don't know if you know anything about him. He was defensive coordinator, but
yeah.
Mike Leach was the offensive coordinator too. So it's not like they can just so easily maintain this offense.
I don't, and football is not the most important thing, but you're right. So what do they do? I mean, I would imagine that in the bowl game, my guess is Steve Spurrier Jr. will probably call the plays. Not that that's
right. It's
important now, but I mean that's just from a football standpoint. I don't. Obviously, I don't. I'm telling you, it's one of those sensitive things. As an athletic director and as president, you always think about, well, what happens if you got to make a change. But now it's just such a different and sensitive issue that I don't know what they do and when they do it, and then it's probably one of those times where the players, the support staff. I mean, that's a family. I mean, that is an extended family that you deal with every day, and guys, it's just he was at practice Saturday.
Yeah,
He was at practice he was at a function of some sort Saturday night, and it's gone. So the shock of that, everything we talked about that everybody's dealing with, well, they're dealing with it as a Mississippi State family, as a football family. So I mean, it's everybody, the administrative assistants, secretaries, and the trainers, and everybody that part of that family is having to deal with that now. Just so how do you deal with that as you get ready to play a bowl game against Illinois? And it's just a lot of things they've got to unravel before they make some difficult decisions. But yeah, I mean, life goes on, but there's a healing process and a mourning process that always takes place for everybody, and that'll be the case for Mississippi State and everybody involved.
Yeah, Amanda, I take from Alabama's. I take from Nick Saban. Funny enough, on this, you're right. It's brutal. It's awful. I remember, Chris, when Nick Saban was being interviewed, Alabama had a game against Florida State as Hurricane Harvey was wrecking Houston, um, and there were some players in Alabama from Houston worried about their families, and they had to go play a game. And Saban's analogy, he told a story about when he was young. He had broken up with his girlfriend, and much more benign, obviously, nowhere near as serious as a hurricane or a death. But he said he had broken up with his girlfriend, and he was very sad for breaking up with his girlfriend. And because he was sad, he lashed out at a customer at his store that he worked at for his dad. And his dad came to him and asked what happened. And he said his girlfriend broke up. And his dad said, well, you got one problem right now. Your girlfriend broke up with you. But if you keep acting this way because of that, if you let it affect you, you're going to have three problems. Because one, your girlfriend broke up with you. Two, I'm going to fire you for lashing out at the customers. And then three, I'm going to beat you for getting fired. And it was one of those, he said, it's kind of a philosophy I've lived by on life since then, where it's like you can have one problem or you can have multiple problems. And it's brutal to just, this is obviously a much more difficult situation to deal with, obviously, because
I really can't. I was trying to think yesterday. My mind went there that I don't know if you guys remember Randy Walker was at Northwestern and he died of a heart attack as head coach. I had a good friend, Greg Knapp, who 2 years ago was an assistant with the Niners, was riding his bike right before training camp and got hit by a vehicle and died. Trying to think of how many times this has happened, and it's
Rex
not a
Dockery
lot.
at Memphis State in
Rex,
83.
yeah, in Rex, that's right, in 83. I mean, the most awful mass tragedy was in 72. I remember, you guys would remember, but you sure heard about it, Marshall. Plane crash in every, but there's a, and I mentioned Bo Ryan. It just, the shock of that is we've seen guys get sick and step away, and but the sharp, quick, nature of this makes it's just difficult to wrap your head around it. I think for a lot of folks.